What do I think of when I hear the word gentrification? First, I think of a word that is sort of wilted and banal, and that is directly corresponds with trend and the value of Black and brown lives. And then I also think of a sort of white supremacist structure that allows for that kind of language to become what's used to refer to something that is actually cyclical and that has a kind of narrative thread of race and racism. White supremacy is not regional. White supremacy is nationwide. And I mean, I would argue worldwide, global, but in the context of America, it is the very structure that the country was based on. So I don't think of it in any way as regional. I think of it as the belief that white people are superior. In New York City, I think in a metropolitan, sophisticated, likes to think of itself as really culturally, ethnically, socioeconomically diverse, very culturally conversant. The way it plays out here is really very keenly about class and money. And so it turns out, it tends to be that the folks who have money, who can buy in places now like Brooklyn, are people who are white, and that's not a mistake. That is by design. It's this country. It is America. It is the system that this country was based on. It's a power structure. It's a power dynamic. It is this fiction that white people, white America, have the power and should maintain the power and make the choices about where everybody else lives, or when property is valuable, when land is valuable, when an item of clothing is valuable, when in fact the irony or not irony, is that most of the time Black and brown Americans are the ones who create the trends to begin with. I am originally from New England, from New Hampshire. And I was raised in a very small rural white town by white parents. I was adopted. And from the very, very beginning of my consciousness, when my white fifth grade teacher told me that I was very pretty for a Black girl, I realized that there was this difference, and that I wanted to be around other people who were or were not pretty for Black girls or Black boys. I wanted to be around brown skin and Black people and Black culture, and so I couldn't really move here fast enough. So to me, and I moved here to have that kind of community and sense of culture. And so gentrification in that context, whereupon Black and brown people are regularly disappearing, is quite devastating to me, because it's my livelihood, and it is my connection to Black culture and community that I didn't have when I was growing up. The reason that you don't see the same kind of process of gentrification in the criminal system is because if you did it in the criminal system, there's no way for white people to benefit. So gentrification in housing is beneficial because white people get to live where they want to live, whereas if you tried to apply that to the criminal system, then there would be a lot more white people in prison. My lifespan in the neighborhood that I live in currently is about 4 more months. We've just received not an eviction notice, but after living in the same apartment for 10 years, the landlords have finally decided that they're going to cash in and they're going to take the building down and build up. So it's quite immediate for us. And there are a lot of factors that go into where we will move next. We're committed to Brooklyn. We're diehard Brooklynites. My son, his livelihood is here, and he goes to school here with all of his pals. And so, but in terms of the livelihood in my immediate neighborhood is up pretty soon. But where we'll move next is somewhere in Brooklyn. We will find a place in Brooklyn to live. There are folks who who are getting evicted or who are losing their homes or being displaced and don't have another place to go or don't have the means to rent another apartment in a different part of, or a different neighborhood of Brooklyn. Certainly, you know, we are able to, but we're by no means on the higher end of the class spectrum. But it's really, I mean, this is about opportunity, I would say. This is about minimum wage. This is about jobs that are available to brown and black-skinned folks. And, you know, ultimately, again, and I keep going back to, this is structural. This is systemic. It's not an accident that the people who are in the positions of power in terms of where to live in gentrification are white. It's how the whole entire system was designed. And so, you know, I feel like this is a question that you know, we're grappling with, and we're trying to figure out if there's a way. I think that our great progressive mayor is trying to make a stand and make affordable housing for everybody. I don't know if that will play out. But it's, you know, it's something that we are grappling with and trying to level the playing field, certainly in my life and my work. I moved to New York 20 years ago, and I lived in Crown Heights with a girlfriend of mine. And, you know, we were black folks. We were young black women who moved here for jobs out of college, and we loved it. And we were immediately involved, you know, with the Block Association. And, you know, I've been back recently for this project and, you know, recognize some of the faces, but mostly it's enormously changed. But do I feel like a gentrifier? Have I felt? I mean, I've lived in various neighborhoods in Brooklyn, and I would say certainly when we moved into the neighborhood in Williamsburg that we are, which is not the fancy hip part. It's on the other side of the BQE off the Lorimer stop, which the realtor described as edgy because it is predominantly Puerto Rican and Dominican. We have, you know, loved our block. The folks who are, you know, old school folks have watched my son grow up there. We didn't feel like a gentrifier because I think in many ways what gentrifiers do, if we're going to go ahead and use that word, is they embody the space and they don't enter the community. So I think one of the really important distinctions is that if you are somebody who is in a position to move into these historically black and brown neighborhoods, that's fine, so long as you are able to and willing to also insert yourself graciously into the community that already exists there. Cultural appropriation, I would say an analogy that is not housing for gentrification is cultural appropriation. And I say that because cultural appropriation, certainly in mainstream culture and pop culture, it's, you know, these young white women start wearing their hair in cornrows and suddenly it's this new trend when we all been wearing cornrows from the beginning of our existence. So it's similar in that way, in that when white people move into a neighborhood that is historically black, it's like you all left these neighborhoods to become ghettos. Like the cities, they were left unattended. These neighborhoods were left unattended to become ghettos, and we made them beautiful. We made them community strong. We made them full of soul and spirit and nuance. And so now you decide that, you know, you want to live here, so you'll just make it your own. And that's fundamentally unjust. I remember when I moved into Crown Heights 20 years ago and thinking that it would be really nice if, if the streetlights or the sidewalks or just the neighborhood, the physical neighborhood were better taken care of. And then I also remember thinking that I had to travel outside the neighborhood to get, like a really good bagel, but also recognizing that the restaurants that were there were really dear to the folks who lived there. So I think about this a lot, which is that what does gentrification mean in terms of amenities? What does it mean in terms of good schools? What does it mean? Why can't all of those things be made available to the folks who live there while they live there? Why does it only happen? I mean, I know why it happens when white people, move there, because the property value and the actual value of the neighborhood, goes up. But I think that there's a way to provide amenities and the physical care of a neighborhood without turning it entirely white. Well, I don't think that they have to, because I think that it's pretty much synonymous with the black vote, which is what the presidential campaign is coming down to. Again, as we started this, the term gentrification is a word that serves white people, but actually damages and displaces black people. So inherently, if the candidates, whoever becomes the candidate for each party, gets the black vote, then they will be dealing with gentrification.